So going into the next 10 days, things are about to pick up pretty quickly for games and different reveals and announcements, as we're assuming there are going to be two big events coming up ahead of Tokyo Game Show, one being a direct, the other one being a Sony State of Play. And this has been rumored for a little while now, but we're kind of running out of time. Again, Tokyo Game Show is not this week, but the following week, starting on the 21st. And I am curious how Sony is going to approach this with the games that they'll have ready to show, because they are in kind of this awkward spot right now after raising prices. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel. Normally I would do a tech wave on Sunday, and I do have one I'm working on now, but it got away from me a little bit. I was trying to build a very cheap, we'll say, budget build PC, and I'm actually having a lot of fun just having different things run on it because it cost like $150, and it's funny to see games actually work on it at that price. But Sony, again, is coming up with some sort of event. It's been rumored a lot. It's been kind of talked about behind the scenes a bit, and I'm thinking we're going to see it. So here's the weird thing, and I was looking at like the calendar for this. This week is like the last full week ahead of Tokyo Game Show, but I mean, we're also kind of expecting a direct this week coming up, and it is one of those situations of, would that be spaced out enough for all of the games that'll be announced? A big general direct, and yes, the State of Play being a little smaller, obviously, than a showcase, but still having games to reveal. I guess the best case scenario is one is this week, and then the other one is next week, and just get it in there before Tokyo Game Show. The worst case scenario is that it's just on the same day. But really, I'm trying to figure out what Sony is going to show here that I guess would make people feel a bit better about where Sony is currently. Not that they're having a hard time necessarily selling consoles, because they're selling PS5s just fine, right? They're catching up basically, or have caught up to the PlayStation 4 just about, and they're expecting to continue that pace going forward with some pretty high expectations for the current fiscal year, and they're going to have to do a lot of work throughout this holiday season and then to start next year. So you assume they're going to have some big games to show here, even during a 20 to 25 minute, we'll say, State of Play. But going into Tokyo Game Show, you would assume that they would also kind of gear these towards the Japanese market. And if you look at like last year, for example, what Tekken 8 was, I think the big announcement that came out of that. They also gave an update for God of War. I think we saw Last Ronin, and then a few other titles in there. I think there was 11 different games showcased in total, and they weren't all new reveals. So I guess keep your expectation around that. Like, they could, of course, show up with a couple of brand new game announcements, some from third parties, maybe one from first party, but don't expect a PlayStation level showcase kind of event. And when they do eventually announce it a few days before on PlayStation blog, we'll say, they'll tell us what to expect, whether it's, PSVR 2 stuff will be present. We'll also talk about PlayStation 5 releases that'll close out the rest of this year and then maybe start next year. At least give us a range and an idea of what we can see. So if we look at third-party games, Stellar Blade has been missing for a little while now, and seems like we're going to need a date on this thing soon, because I thought it was coming out in 2023, and it's September. Although they could have just it could have been internally pushed to next year, and maybe they'll give us a release date or a new year with a trailer. That's something I've noticed, is there are many games with Sony right now that just need release dates. So like Stellar Blade, Death Stranding 2, the Resident Evil 4 VR 2, PSVR 2 release date. We still need that one. That's been shown a couple of times, but it's always like, oh, more information will follow later. Rise of the Ronin we know is out, or at least they have it dated currently with the year 2024. I don't know if it's necessary to show up here again unless they have a release date for us, so I'm not really expecting that one. That's kind of the same with Budokai Tenkaichi 4. There was a lot of hype earlier this year when it was revealed with Bandai, and we've seen Bandai obviously show up in these State of Plays approaching Tokyo Game Show many times, but that still seems like it's far enough off to where it's not necessary for them to show up at a State of Play right now. A game that I think would be really, really big for Sony to showcase and would at least help with what they've done with their price increase, because obviously to play online with PlayStation, it's $80 now. you would have maybe Monster Hunter from Capcom, the next big one, the follow-up to Monster Hunter World. That was very, very big for Sony on the PlayStation 4, and that's something that they could probably get the marketing for and really push it as a PlayStation title. We had Monster Hunter World, that got a PS4, I think it was PS4 Pro Special Edition system. I think that's a great game to partner with, and then also have like the side panels and stuff for Monster Hunter. There's a lot they can do there, but Monster Hunter, huge in Japan, would be a really good reveal for Tokyo Game Show and a really good property to put the PS5 next to, kind of align it with that marketing. But the one that's definitely tripping me up, and I'm sure many others, because it is kind of a mystery now as to what Sony is doing internally. Not that their studios aren't working on stuff, but they really haven't given us too much to go on necessarily outside of Horizon Zero Dawn is apparently getting a remake, okay? But like outside of that, we knew about Last of Us Factions, and that apparently is in limbo now, or has had focus move from that to something else with that Naughty Dog's working on. Sony Santa Monica's working on something, a new IP, we believe. But looking up and down their list, obviously Spider-Man 2, that is coming out next month at Tokyo Game Show, the State of Play that aired before that in 2022. They showcased God of War. I think they had like the controller and stuff that they showed off there. One big final marketing push at an event. Sure, you can do that for Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man, when it came out on the PS4, did very well on the sales charts in Japan, where you get those each week from like Famitsu and stuff. It sold over 100,000 copies there its first week. So yeah, I would expect Spider-Man 2 to also do really well, and you would expect that to also kind of push PS5s a bit more in Japan on that opening week. So why not show it here? But there are two games that I would like to see get. Well, okay, so one is already announced. That's Helldivers 2, but we don't have a release date for it. And I think this is a great game to add that quote-unquote extra value to PlayStation Plus Premium by putting it in there day one. Because, of course, PlayStation Plus Premium is now $160 a year. It jumped $40, and they said it was to bring quality games to that service. I know Sony's been on the fence about the idea of let's bring these games to the service day and date like Microsoft, and they've been waiting a year or two. In this case, though, you could treat it like, not like necessarily Destruction All-Stars, because that game just wasn't very good. I think Helldivers 2 is going to be very enjoyable, and because it works off the multiplayer component, you kind of attach it to PlayStation Plus Premium as a day one release, and maybe it comes out, say, in November. But the studio I would really like to see show up here for Sony is absolutely Team Asobi. Team Asobi has been kind of quiet since the PlayStation 5 released because, of course, they did Astros Playroom, and it was an awesome experience to just come with your system. It was great, right? It was just, you loaded up your PS5, there it was. It walked you through kind of the extra features of the DualSense while it really giving you a really fun platform, bit of a collectathon thrown in there too. It was a good time, and it kind of gave me that peek into what Team Asobi could do with a full-scale Astrobot style game, 3D platformer, not necessarily one that's tied to VR. Not that they couldn't do something with that, because I think it could work into it, but I feel like now more than ever, Team Asobi is ready to take that next step and provide that general audience style 3D platformer with Astro, who would be a very good mascot for Sony, and most likely take Astrobot and do that port that's been rumored up to PlayStation VR 2, because that's something that Sony needs to work on badly right now, is just support for their new headset. I know people who are really into that sector of PlayStation are like, oh, there's all these games are coming out and stuff. And I'm not going to say there aren't, but there's nothing necessarily that's come up that I just go to anyone and go, you got to get this $550 headset. You have to. This game is out, it is incredible. The games there are still interesting and fun, but nothing that's like world shaking that would make you spend technically more than the PS5 to get. Although I will say, if Astrobot gets announced as a port going to PSVR 2 and you didn't play it on the original PSVR, highly recommend it. Really, really fun game, especially in VR, taking advantage of kind of the extra features and things you can do, and then moving it to something like PSVR 2 that have additional features over PlayStation VR. I assume they would at least do some extra things to take advantage of that. But it's going to be an interesting a showcase or event, I'll say, for Sony with this State of Play coming up, kind of how they want to approach it, what they're going to reveal, and how they could add extra value to their PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium tier, as I think part of the rumor from Jeff Grubb was that the State of Play was in response to that, but who really knows? At this point, Sony just needs to work on PlayStation Plus Premium, specifically because there's really not a lot that's differentiating that from the extra tier, but something like Helldivers 2 going in day one for Premium might be a good start. But let me know what you guys think about all this down below with the State of Play coming up, hopefully somewhat far apart from this Direct, but with my luck, it'll be on the same day. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.